Yes, sir. We we back. Another week. This is Shield, and we back for another one. This is another one. So I think this topic and this week is going to be very, very interesting. Thank you all for joining. Thank you. So without further ado, well, let me just tell you who we are real quick. So Shield is a show that we came up with that we do once a week, every Wednesday, 5:30 live. And we talk about a lot of different uh, topics based on relationships, love, and just to be able to provide the energy, right? The reason we named it Shield is so this can be like a shelter, something you could come in and hide under this shield. We could give you encouragement, edification, and we could continue to build on great things. We want to say rest in peace to my man Frankie Beverly Mays. He was amazing at what he did, and we got a good show. So this topic is about relationships, about with Black America, what Black people in America, how we came over here, reparations. We're gonna touch on a lot of stuff. Y'all see my shirt. I'm ready for the war, right? So I'm gonna just introduce the crew first. So we got up front, we got Romy. Come on, Rome, introduce yourself to the people. Say hi to the people.
Good evening, everybody. This is Rome. Hope all is well. We welcome you to tonight's topic. Appreciate y'all.
And I do not see Lim, King Lim. Okay, there he is. So King Lim, introduce yourself to the people.
All right, welcome to another show, everybody. We welcome you. We thank you for coming, for showing up for us, and we hope to show up for you and show out for you today. All right, welcome.
And the last player I got up, man, just the last player. Let me just say a little bit. I ain't gonna do the whole introduction like I normally do because I promise you, I kid you not, we'll be here for 5, 10 minutes. But what I can say is this man single-handedly changed my life. And I must give him flowers right quick. Just please allow me to do so, right? So before I bring him on the stage, I was a young punk, right? Coming to college straight from Chicago to Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia. And I had this professor. And this professor actually changed my life. I got in his class, and my man gave me different perspectives. And guess what? Out of all these many years later, I graduated in 2003. After all these many years later, my man is here with a story and he got something to share. This is Dr. Kuntz, Richard Kuntz. We can't hear you, Kuntz. We can't hear you, sir.
On, did I
Okay,
get?
introduce yourself to the people, please.
All right, I got the mute's not on. Can you hear me yet?
No, we can hear you now. Introduce yourself to the people, please.
Oh, okay. It looks like I had to get a little bit closer to the mic. Good evening, everybody. Good people. It's always good to be with my brothers, sisters too, when they're available. Right? Don't need any more sisters beside my wife, by the way. But always good to be here and in the land of the living. So, I'm ready to have some dialogue. Appreciated what you said about me, brother Carlos. I don't remember you being that much of a knucklehead, but a lot of times we hide what's really going on, and then you get an opportunity to talk about those things, and your brothers lift you up. So
Hey, and what y'all really, really appreciate. I mean, you must have saw it in me because you used to call me after class a lot, and I learned a lot, and I was able to graduate in 4, and I owe a lot of it to you, man. Thank you, my brother.
it's a pleasure to be there for you.
Okay, so look, what I'm gonna do, I don't see King Lemuel, but I'm gonna just try to kind of slide out, right? I have some questions that I want to ask, but I know Lim has a different direction he want to go in, right? And so he wants to really focus on the reparation part based on what was supposed to happen to California. So what we'll do is I'll let Lim come on in with this portion of it, and then what up, Ash? And then so I let Lim come in with this portion of it, and then at the end of the day, I'll pick up as I need to moderate. There you go, Lim. It's your world.
Some big news happening here in the state of California. It's been going on for a while, but just recently, as of last week, we found out that the reparations bills that were supposed to be passed, they were going to make it to Governor Newsom's desk, and we're going to put the pressure on Governor Newsom to then make a decision if he's going to sign the bill. Well, come to find out, there was a black caucus who was involved in this bill. Let me take a step back. The bill was 1,000 pages, ladies and gentlemen. It was written for the last 4 years, and this group came together and wrote the reasons going back to history and some of the struggles that we've had in this country. A lot of them. It's very detailed. I read some of it last night about a lot of just all of the misfortune, but beyond misfortune, the terrible tragedies that have befallen our people here in America for the last 400 years. And it talked about that. We were right at the finish line. And at the last minute, the Black Caucus, which were comprised of these members, and I want everybody to know who they are because we need to know who they are. We need to call these people out. These members of this Black Caucus decided that they were going to pull the bill. I'm going to start from top to bottom. Stephen Bradford, the vice chair of the Black Caucus. Bryan was very adamant about pulling the bill. Dr. Akilah Weber, she's a female. Mia Bonta, Christopher Holden, Dr. Corey Jackson, Kevin McCarthy, Tina McConnor, Mike Gibson, Lola Smallwood Cuevas, Reggie Bryan, Jones Sawyer Sr., Shirley Weber, Malia Cohen, Tony Thurman. All of these individuals were a part of pretty much, as you want to just call it what it is, sabotaging the bill at the last minute. What they basically say is the bill wasn't ready. The governor had some questions about the bill, which is normal. And they didn't want to put the pressure on Governor Newsom because he's running for office too. People don't know this, to actually sign the bill and put accountability to the bill. So they got a call. I'm almost certain they got a call at the last minute. Said, if you guys put me on the spot like this, it's not going to go nice for you. Something like that to those terms. Now, this is not the first time this has happened, but we were very close. And if anybody knows about politics, as California goes, so goes the rest of the country. How do we know this? New York right now is working on their task force to write their own reparations bill. Oklahoma supposedly is working on a task force to write their own reparations bill. So California has a big influence. Now, is this thing over? No. But this was a huge opportunity either way for us to find out how we stand. And this is the whole point of all this. Our allegiance that we've had for the last 80 years to the Democratic Party, we need to start to re-examine that allegiance. Ice Cube has came out and said verbatim, if anybody is telling black folks that you should vote for them and they don't deserve to give you anything, you need to re-examine why you're voting for them, whoever that may be. He said it's time for us to vote with a conscientious heart that we deserve to get something for our vote. It's not just vote blue, no matter who. We got to come out of that mindset. My grandmother voted blue. My great grandparent voted blue. Now, with that being said, that's not about allegiance to them. It's not about telling you who to vote for. I don't care who you vote for, but you need to get something for your vote. And this is not about being on the Donald Trump side or the other side. And so Q brought that point up. I thought it was a very valid point. We need to start to re-examine that. And then there was a clip that I wanted to be shown at the beginning of the show that talks specifically about Kamala Harris. She came out very emboldened in an interview and said, I am not going to do anything specifically for black folks. That's what she said. And then she followed that statement up with, if you, if, do you have that, Suge? I'm sorry. Do you have that so people can see that? Yeah, can you put that up? Put that up, please. Well, while Suge is getting that prepared, I will finish my statement. So she made a bold statement, and that statement actually signifies that she believes, and many of the Democratic Party believes, that no matter how they treat us, and that no matter what carrots they dangle in front of us as black folks, we gonna still vote for them no matter what. And this needs to come to an end. We've allowed celebrities like Steve Harvey and many others dictate how we vote. We have to understand Steve Harvey, Mr. Smiley, and D.L. Hewley, and many of these celebrities, LeBron James, they already got their 40 acres and a mule. They are in a different tax bracket. They're in a different economic lifestyle than many of us black folks here in the trenches. We can't vote like they vote or vote because what they said. Many of our celebrities and athletes, I'm going to say it like I feel it, are bought, sold, and paid for. They are compromised because the way they make their money, their resources, comes from corporations who pretty much dictate the terms of their engagement as it pertains to politics. You don't believe me? That's a fact. LeBron James can't go out and say something Nike does not approve of. Okay? Oprah Winfrey, all these, Tyler Perry, all of them. So I say all this to say that you can have your heroes, but black folks, it's time for us to start to vote with with the way other cultures vote. You're going to give me something for my vote. I'm not just going to give it to you for free. That those days have got to be over. And this is not about Trump. This is not about blue and red. This is about what's right for us. So at the end of this, I'm gonna wrap this up with the reparations situation. The Black Caucus sold us out at the last minute, pulled the bill. Now there was a little cloak and dagger in the meeting. There was a white Republican gentleman who asked them to bring the bill before the for the caucus or before the governing body, and he did that as basically as pomp and circumstance. He didn't want the bill to pass, but he kind of put black folks on Front Street by even saying that, and they wouldn't give him enough votes to even bring it up to the actual committee. This all happened just recently. It's time for us to pay attention to what's happening. The reparations bill can and will pass, but we do have some stumbling blocks, and it's not Trump, it's not white folks, it's our own people. And I want to just leave. I'm gonna land my plane there and let somebody else come in and talk if they want to have something to say. Thank you, sir.
And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the Lift Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit black children, black families, black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this: any policy that will benefit black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people.
For sharing that. Really, really appreciate it. Let's get right to it, man. I'm gonna introduce I'm gonna introduce Dr. Coons, and I'm gonna let Dr. Coons tell us his perspective on how we even got here. So, if you will, Dr. Coons, can you introduce yourself by telling us a little bit more about your background? What makes you qualified to be able to have this opinion? And then from there, can you just go straight into the history of how we got here for those who have been living under a rock? Once you do that, you can bring us back up to reparations and as well as the Black Caucus and not doing nothing specifically for Black people. Take your time, So I want you to be able to say it. Then I want Lim to be able to jump right back in. Come on.
All right, I got you. I think I got you. I did want to say taking time, Brother Carlos, to acknowledge Mike Beverly.
Your sound is going in and out, Coons. We can hear you, but your sound is going in and out.
Looks like I might have to like hug the screen on the phone in order for you to hear me. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you much better. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I just wanted to acknowledge this first that you started this broadcast, this program with Frankie Beverly, acknowledging his death. He was an icon, and it's actually a perfect place to start when we talk about Frankie Beverly, who lived to be 70 years old, I believe, right? And so when I think about Frankie Beverly, I think about everything that he represented in terms of just his music alone. I don't know everything about how he lived his personal life, but I know that his millions of music that he performed, what was it about? It was about the uplift.
Your,
Anybody?
your phone is still breaking up, Coons. I'm sorry. We want to hear all that you got to say, and it's just sound choppy. So it's kind of like we can hear you, but it's going in and out. Um, he said if you have a headset, it would probably help. So I'm not
You know,
sure
you
if
know
you.
what you probably can do, man. Send me that link to my email because I don't know what's going on with my phone. Um,
Okay.
I think you got that email,
Yeah.
rkuntz@gmail.com.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Lim. I'll let Lim pick up while I try to get Coons the email. Go ahead, Lim. We can't hear you either, sir. You got to come off mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So when I read the report, some of the report, the beginning of the report starts talking about the different atrocities that have happened to black folks as far as property, redlining, the hangings, the police brutality, and the incarceration rates that are, unjust, mass incarceration for us. Even whittled it down to how we were getting locked up for crack rock when people, white folks that had money were buying cocaine, the powder form we couldn't afford, and we had higher sentencing for crack rock than they had for buying kilos of cocaine. So we're seeing all these different things. Everybody knows about the real Rick Ross story, if you know anything about him, and how the CIA was involved in this case. And there was a lot of funny business going on. And they were able to get down to some grassroots undercover detection about how the CIA was involved with knowingly and willingly allowing drugs to come into underserved communities across the country. So all of these things are how we got part of how we got to where we are in form of reparations. Is Dr. Coons, are you ready in rock and roll, buddy? Okay, I'll keep on going. All right. So yeah, so a lot of the ways that we got it, so we got mass incarceration, which they call is the new plantation. We're looking at a situation where we're talking about housing situation. There was a story about a black couple who purchased a home in Los Angeles at a time where that was considered a white neighborhood in 1945, and the neighbors threatened to burn their house, and they thought it was just well, whatever. They ended up burning these people's house. They killed two children in the home, and they ended up killing the mother who was the last survivor. And the excuse to here's what the detectives told everybody: it was an accident. When everybody knew that the threat was real. There's another case called the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, where they were experimenting on black folks, telling them that we have a cure for syphilis. They were injecting it with syphilis, and guess what? They ended up getting a $20 million reparation settlement down the line. Bill Clinton in 1994 signed a formal apology for that atrocity. So these were some of the things they talked about in the report so we could understand why the mental, the physical, and the psychological effects that slavery and the injustices have had on black folks in this country for the last greater part of 400 years. That's basically where we are. I'll keep going. Dr. Kuntz, you want to come in? You ready? All right.
that email, but I'm trying to actually get on right now, so I don't know
We,
what's going
we, we,
Okay.
can hear you. We can hear you now, Coons. Come
Yeah,
on.
we can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Well, let me take up where Brother Lim left off. Um, I had started the last conversation by saying I appreciate Brother Carlos mentioning uh, Frankie Beverly. right? And I'm starting with Frankie Beverly because you started there, Carlos. But what's important is that Frankie Beverly is an icon. What, right? He lived to be 77 years old, and the music that he produced and he performed for years, over for 40 years. Really, what was it about? It was about lifting people up, particularly our folks, because white folks weren't going out to see Frankie Beverly in droves, right? So I grew up in an era before Frankie Beverly where that's what we were about as people. And so what I believe happened to us, and I know the question you asked was like, since slavery, right? Well, you can't talk about since slavery without talking about slavery, right? And then if you talk about slavery, you have to talk about on with us before slavery, right? And so, and in Africa, here's the thing that's not taught, and it should be taught to all students. First of all, they teach you anthropology like when you start taking classes in college, right? Why don't they teach cultural anthropology to all of our children when they're in elementary school and in middle school, right? So now I'm giving you this information because I think it's really, really important. And why is it important? Well, what happened with our folks when we were in Africa, we got away from the center of who we are as people, right? And I really believe that when white folks came across the ocean to get us, that and they did the same thing, have no doubt about it, that in Europe they were doing the same thing to each other, right? They had ethnic wars, they were having tribal warfare, right? But when they came across that water to get us, you have to think about this. We were already at odds. We were already at odds. Otherwise, they would have never been able to bring our behinds across that ocean, right? But the thing about anthropology that nobody talks about is that white folks were just us 50,000 years removed and didn't realize it. Some did. The cultural anthropologists realized it. But what happened to us after they brought us here in chains? We were better off when we were released from so-called chains, and then we had to live segregated. Why were we better off? Because we depended on each other, because we had more love for each other, because we had to look out for each other. We had to protect one another, particularly our women. And once we had the so called green light, and this green light was nothing more than a trick. It was a trick that was playing on us. That green light that was given to us was this idea of integration. No, when we were fighting for civil rights, the idea should have been that, look, we can work, we can start businesses, we can go to your business if we want to, but a part of our civil rights struggle should have been, we'll continue to build up our own businesses, build up our own people, build up our own community so we can begin to deal. We can begin to make the deals with other folks and say, look, this is what we want. Think about this for a minute. And I'm not going to take up too much of the time. I like jumping back in and listening to other brothers. And I'm going to come back to Brother Lim's point that he made about us not just going for the okie doke and us just giving our vote away to folks because both sides talk to us out of the side of their neck, right? Both sides do that. They just do it in a different way, right? But here's the thing, that civil rights struggle was really the beginning of the end. How many of you saw that video when Dr. King was talking about he was afraid that he had led his people into a burning building? What was he talking about? I believe that Dr. King, near the end of his life, he began to realize, and so did Malcolm, by the way, they both were moving closer together in terms of their ideologies and their philosophies. They started realizing that, you know what? We can be a powerful people by sheer numbers and by staying together. Malcolm was saying, you know what? Well, I'm not for integration, right? Now he changed his views. He said, I'm for separation, right? Now he was on to something. What Dr. King was doing was saying, man, we want equal rights, we want integration. White folks were like this, rubbing their hands together, siding with Dr. King. And it wasn't just about this idea of nonviolence. It was about the fact that we have those Negroes so thoroughly confused and believing that they're inferior that, you know, why not integration? Because they'll begin to frequent our businesses. They'll begin to give us their money. We can create the NFL, the NBA. They have their own leagues. Let's just take all of them on. That's what happened to us as people. We bought the lie that everything that they represented, everything that they did was better than that we already had. That was the lie. That's how they got us, and that's why we are where we are today.
Love it. Okay, so let's get Romy on in here. What you got to say about it, Rom?
Hey, y'all boys hitting on some good stuff here tonight. My take on this whole thing is, they Abe Lincoln wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, and we got a lot of people that talk about Second Amendment, Fifth Amendment, all of these different amendments, but nobody is standing on business that we never got what they promised us, and it's in writing. And so I think it's time for us, like what Dr. Coons is talking about, what Brother Lim's talking about. It's time for us to stand on business, and we got to unite and go to these candidates and say, hey, this is in writing. We no longer giving our vote without you guys. We're tired of the talk. We're tired of everybody just wanting to go out here and bring out the stars to come dance and do all of this. We're standing on business at this point. So my thing is, we got to talk about the things that matter to us. And it's no longer, oh, well, we can't just do it for black people. Well, guess what? You're doing it for the other people. You're doing it for all these other different communities. So at some point, we got to stand up because we can no longer stand in the shadows. It's time to get up front and get into the meetings that matter. And let them hear our voice and let them know what we're standing on if we don't give them our vote. That's my take right now.
Okay, so I'm gonna play devil advocate because I love to do this. I spin the boat real quick. So Lim, let me ask you this. I'm gonna be Karen today, or Bob, if you will. So why do
No, no,
you people
no.
feel like
Hold
we
on.
need
No, let
reparations?
me correct you. You let me correct you. Let me correct you. You're gonna be Uncle Charlie. You're gonna be Charlie and Miss Ann. Go
No,
ahead.
I'm gonna be Mr. Kaminsky. And what I'm gonna say is, why do you people think you need reparations? Ready, go.
Well, it's not about need. It's about we built this country. We built this country when the gross national product, the biggest gross national product, was cotton. I can speak from my own personal experience. My mom was from Mississippi. She picked 300 pounds of cotton at the age of 12 years old for a nickel and a soda pop and an orange. And her great great grandmother, they worked and built this country for free. A Spanish word, gratis, free, pro bono lawyers, pro bono. So we built this country. We are on the backs of our ancestors for years, and we were mistreated. We were redlined. We were pushed out of housing. We were told we weren't good enough. We were told the white man's ice is colder. All these things we believe. And I want to talk to what Dr. Kuhn said before I answer your next question. You are absolutely right. That whole part about segregation and coming and mixing of together, it diluted some of our greatness, and it makes it easy for the politicians to throw us in there with I'm gonna say it, the alphabet community, because they use the term minority. Minority, that could be anybody. That could be a dumb, crippled, and crazy person. That could be a midget. That could be, you know what I'm saying? So we got diluted by having all of our concerns brought in with everybody else's concerns, and that's not what the movement was about. So they did later on, you saw that retrospectively, you look back and say, that was a mistake. How do we know we can make it on our own? Black Wall Street, everybody. Can I interest you in that? Black Wall Street showed you that we had thriving economic businesses in our communities. And when they didn't like that, you know the end of that story. Come on, Mr. Charlie. Bring on another question.
No, no. So put your phone on mute. Somebody is echoing. So this question is for Dr. Koontz, right? So
Okay.
can I ask Lim, why do you people feel like you need reparations? He answered that, and then now my question to Dr. Koontz is, can you tell me specifically what needs to be done before reparations are handed out?
Oh man, that's an easy question for me. I'm the elder in the room, right? I can look at the brothers here. I know I'm the elder because y'all look like y'all in y'all's 20s still, right? So let me tell y'all as the elder, man, before you pass out reparations, you have to heal. You have to now. Don't get me wrong. Reparations can be a part of healing, right? But we have too many sick brothers and sisters, right? And so, I took a look at what was going on in California briefly as it relates to what reparations are defined as, right? And they talk about restitution, compensation, satisfaction, and guarantees of non-repetition of these issues, right? So for me, like I saw one immediately. The very first one, you probably already heard it already, that we have to deal with in terms of those reparations is rehabilitation. We can't do anything with reparations if we don't. Now, some of us are ready, right? Now, like brothers like us would know what to do with our reparations, right? And I will say this, but there are too many of us, and they know this is a part of the equation. Like, that's crazy to talk about what you're gonna give them, 250,000, because you really could never pay for what they owe us, right? But giving $250,000 to who? A crackhead? To those who are throwing money in the air already, like, and they don't have it, but they living at home with their mamas, right? So there's a sickness in too many of our people. Who they gonna give that money to? They gonna give Sexy Red some more money so she can come out with another line of lip gloss where she names all of this lip gloss, all of these crazy things like pussy hole pink. And I'm sorry, but I had to say that. So or gonorrhea, right? Or what? So we got sickness in our community. And so to start talking about reparations, and I believe in reparations, but I believe that reparations has to be, you have to really be meticulous. You have to really be sensible. You have to really know about, all right, now how can we award reparations? Well, one way that would benefit people that I believe would probably be the best way to do it is to basically give reparations based upon this idea that you're always trying to elevate. That if you're always trying to elevate, then anything that is due to me, because I'm elevating, I got it. So when I'm getting ready to get up out of high school and I'm headed toward college, man, I never pay for a college education with a state-supported university or college, ever. Never if I'm a black man living in America or a black woman living in America. I never pay for higher education, right? The other thing that's really, really important, right? You can tell that all of these are in me, right? They're already inside of me, right? The thing that's important, right? Man, anybody who is black and they can determine, number one, that they're black and their descendants, right? Their ancestors were black. They were brought over here in chains. Anybody who can prove that that's who they are, man, we don't pay any federal taxes and state taxes. Get out of here, because that won't even come close to paying us back for what we lost. But you know what? It's an excellent way where they can say, well, we're not really giving them checks, but you know what? That way, everything you're fighting for, man, I'm waiting till, let's say, for instance, they say, well, we can do that, but we can't do it for the rest of your life. We'll give it to you for 25, 30 years. Well, you know what? I'm going to choose the 25 or 30 years that I'm making the most money. Man, I'm gonna be making, I'm gonna be like, now, you could die anytime, right? So I'm gonna wait till I'm making about 150K. And I'll be like, after this point, man, everything is non-taxed on me. Get out of here, right? So I got 30 years of money that's coming to me that's not taxed. I get to keep everything. Man, we don't have to pay for no health care. What? Healthcare, we don't have to pay for that. We don't get taxed. Man, if we want to go to the next level in college, I don't care if it's graduate school or medical school, man, we don't pay for any of that. And what is that attached to? Man, that's attached to your desire. That's attached to everything that makes you who you are and makes you the kind of person that says, man, look at me. And not only that, your people see you, right? Which takes me to my last point, and I'm gonna let y'all in. It takes me to education. Man, you know what? They can't, because they hijacked every system. They hijacked every system to benefit their own people. Why do I know that? I work in education, right? Thank you, Lord, for allowing me to work at a historically black college as my first job as an educator, right? Because I was able to see so much and give back so much. But here's the thing, man, with education as public school education, man, we say, nope, we want the very best educators. And we'll take, don't get me wrong, they got some good white folks that can teach black children. Let's be real, right? But you know what, man, we want the very best of us teaching our children. Can you imagine what the conversation would be like in classrooms if brothers like us had the opportunity to talk to little brothers, right? From the time that they were pre-K all the way through elementary school. Can you imagine what kind of young men there would be? Oh my God, they would be unstoppable. So these are the kinds of things, like when we start talking about reparations, that's what I want to talk about. I'd be glad to be in the room, man. I wouldn't care. You would send me to California, man. I sit in a room with the legislators. I don't know what the Congressional Black Caucus is saying about this. I don't even know what those Negroes in the California Assembly are doing as it relates to this. I don't know why they tried to kill it. It doesn't sound like it was totally killed, but I'll come back to them on that. It sounds to me like maybe they didn't really get what they really wanted. And they were going to send it back and bring it back again. So maybe I can leave on that point and let him explain, because I can't see. Now I don't know these folks, but man, if you telling me they had all of these brothers and sisters that stood against it, right? What are the reasons? Because they can't have an assembly filled with handkerchief head Negroes, Uncle Charlie's.
Hey, Mr. Kaminsky. So look, so I'm gonna let what I really want to do is I got one more question, but I'm gonna let Lim go ahead and talk about the Black Caucus and the question that Kuntz asked, and then I have a question for Rome. Mr. Kaminsky has a question for Rome. Go ahead. You still on mute, Lim.
So what was explained was that that the last minute Gavin Newsom threw a modification in there that he wanted to continue a study, and then he threw some other modifications. But here was the main point. You push it through and force Gavin to make a decision. We can work out all the other stuff. See, it's harder because we have to wait till the next caucus. You're talking about a whole nother year now before we can push this bill through. So you get it across the finish line. We've been waiting 4 years. It was 1,000-page study. We've already done the study. And everything was clear, but some things were modified, or he said, I have some concerns, which that's normal. That happens all the time. You still you put the onus on him to say yay or nay. And guess what? We got a valuable point. If he says no, we know where we stand, right? And how we gonna vote. That comes back to the vote again. We've given Democratic Party members just our value. We gave them all of our allegiance for the last so many years. And if he said no, they're shooting themselves in the foot. California is a huge state for Democrats. Gavin Newsom wants to run for president. Let me just tell you guys, his goal is to run for president. That's his goal. And so if that's his goal, he can't do it without us in California. I can tell you that right now. He ain't gonna be able to do it without us. So, but the Black Caucus, whether it was ego involved, you guys, whether it was, well, he ain't doing what we asked him to do, it doesn't matter. Get out of your own way. Let that good white Christian man make a decision.
Okay,
And
let me
I'm
for the
being
sake
facetious, but you get my point.
for the sake of time,
Right, right.
for the sake
I'm
of
with
time, what I'm gonna do is I'm just asking questions. So we're gonna bring Rome in
you.
here, and what I'm gonna do is we're just gonna do this like a questionnaire. And I'm Mr. Kaminsky today, and I'm sorry, Mr. Kaminsky, if you feel like I'm disrespecting using your name, but that's who I am today. So Mr. Kaminsky has a question for Rome, right? I hear all y'all saying, right? So how would you heal the relationship between Black people and America then to make America great again?
Who, me? Go.
Mr. Rome, let's
Hey,
go Rome.
so my response to that is, when has America ever been great? In my opinion, America probably was great when the Native Americans was here, the Aborigines that was here. That's when America was great. But once you had the colonists here and they doing their thing with the slavery, you can't call that great. There was no greatness in that. There was no greatness in you being a slave master, making forcing people to take on your last name, disbanding families, branding people, whipping people, children not being able to really be children. Some children, in some cases, that was in Florida, their babies being thrown to alligators and things of that nature. So you can't tell me that there is no level of PTSD that went on with our ancestral line, and they was expected to just move on. So how do you heal from that? I think we got to have a level of serious licensed counselors in our community to really unravel some of these generational things that we have going on, from mental illness to other things that's going on in our community. Just what Coach touched on, we got to talk about the rehabilitation because there's a lot of different things that's going on there, and we got to educate. I think financially, a lot of us really grew up not really understanding how money works. So you can let your money work for you if you understand money. If you don't understand money, you're going to go out here and buy the next pair of Jordans. You're going to buy the next pair of this instead of investing in the stocks, instead of looking into flipping houses, things of that nature. So I think it's a level of educating, a level of people just waking up and actually doing what it takes to grow and not just stay stagnant. So it's a level of movement.
I love
That's
it.
what I think.
Thank you so much. Okay, up next, Lim, and then I'm gonna go to Dr. Coons. Lim, let me ask Ms. Kaminsky again. Tell me, what did you people win, or what was the gain or loss that you felt during the civil rights movement? What do you feel like you people gained, and what did you lose during that time? And how can we move forward from that whole? I'm tired of hearing about that Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X movement. We're long past that time. Right now, everything is equal playing field. You all had a black president, for God's sake. So tell me, what's your take, sir?
Mr. Kaminsky, I'm glad you brought up that black president, sir. I remember watching Good Times 1977, circa 1977. It was little Michael that asked his mama, Mama, can there ever be a black president? Do you think it will be?
Hold on, say it
And
again,
she said,
Lil. Say it one more time. Say it one more time for the people in the back.
all right. He said, it was 1977, circa 1977, Good Times is a show. And I remember little Michael looked at his mama with his little doting eyes like a little deer and said, Mama, do you ever think you're making me laugh.
Go
Do you
ahead,
ever
go
think
ahead.
it'll
Go
be
ahead. We got
a
the point.
black president? Now, reason why I'm bringing this up, ladies and gentlemen, is very important. We have sold ourselves out to symbolism. Oh, I'm gonna say it. Barack Obama was a symbolic offering to black people. And right now, he is the reason. Thank God for him that our eyes are opening, that we are not settling for symbolism no more. Because a black president who does nothing for you is no different than a white president who's telling you he ain't gonna do nothing for you. At the end of the day, Barack Obama did something for the LGBT community. He did something for other communities, but he didn't do anything for our community. And bless his heart, Oprah Winfrey cried the day he was inaugurated, and Tyler Perry and all them people got a good kick out of that. It was really nice. It was all nice and good until we went through 8 years and we were standing at the same place that he came in at,
Okay.
crying and in tears.
Okay, so let me pick it up from here because okay, I'm done with Mr. Kaminsky, right? This is Los back, right? Bring Dr. Coons in here, right? Bring him on, come on in the room, like the Christian songs say. Come on in the
All
room.
right, all right.
So
So
one of my favorite things about this show specifically is we always come up with positivity. We try to leave off with some edification. And so I want to switch gears. So forgive Mr. Kaminsky, you dismissed. This is Los now. And I want to know some solutions. Right, we all talked about the problems. We hear all the problems, and Rome was really, really great at talking about mending us together, kumbaya, with the education and bringing us all together. Right, so let's talk about some solutions. So let me give you this scenario, Dr. Kuntz, and Lim, get ready because you next, right? And then Rome, I'm gonna ask you the same thing, and we're gonna end like this. But this the grand finale. Now this the fireworks with the grand finale. So Kuntz, if I me personally at the debate last night, if I was to say breaking news and we cut off the debate and I took my mic that's right here and I gave it to Kuntz and I said, you know what, sir, we want you to be in charge. Can you tell us what your idea is to be able to come up with the solutions to be able to solve the black issues we have in the world and how to bring us together in unity and to heal us?
that's a good question. Excellent question. And again, one that I've thought about, right, as it relates to what we need. One of the things that I'll say about both of these candidates, and this I have to start with them to answer this question. I don't like either one of them. I'm just being real. I don't like either one of them. I hated Trump from the beginning. I hate him now, right? Hate's a strong word. I despise him. But The one thing I'll give him is that he has a target audience, right? Now, the real target audience, people should know who they are without even thinking about it. His real target audience is other people just like him, rich folk. But the other target audience that put him over the top were all of these other folks who aren't necessarily rich, they're working class and then low income and even poor. He spoke their language in terms of how they feel when they see other folks coming from outside, Mexicans particularly, right? But then they look at Mexicans coming in and living a certain way, but they also look at all others, particularly black folks. And I'm gonna tell you what I think. I think that they look at black folks, particularly the ones who they cheer for in Sunday football games, basketball games, right? Celebrities. They hate to see those black people make money. So that feeds their angst as well, right? Trump knew that crowd existed. So he played that game to enliven them, to embolden them. He speaks for them. He speaks the things that they can't say and would never say in front of anybody, right? So with that said, I think that he would have been much more successful as a president in his first term, and he'd have a second term. Not saying that he might not get another term now, but I don't think so. If he had just dealt with the issues that affect the majority of the people, if he was honest about what they get as rich folks and what all the other folks don't get and how he can make that happen, because he has enough. For instance, I'm going to use this example. What do they cry about more than anything else? Immigration, right? But if you go to black folks and you ask them about immigration, what do you think black folks are going to say? They're going to be like, hell yeah, they let too many of those folks in the country. They let, everywhere I look, there's a Mexican. Everywhere I look, there's somebody that can't speak the language. I know that's what I'm going to say. I bet you the brothers on here will say the same thing. They got all of these folks who are coming across the border. That's not a democratic thing. All of them are doing the same thing, because who does it serve? It serves rich folks. Because I'm telling you this because it's based on observation, and you all tell me what you see. But in my city and in other cities, my wife and I traveled to Birmingham, to Nashville. We took a trip just to go to monuments and civil rights museums, and right? But every city we went to, man, there wasn't a place we went where we didn't see a Mexican that couldn't speak English. If Trump had focused on that, not just talking about the immigration, but saying how it hurts all of us, but didn't demonize black people, man, he'd win any election that he came up for, right? You can't go to a place where there are folks that don't speak English and you go down the street and they're operating heavy equipment that takes some training. Well, how did they get the training? Well, I'm telling you what I think. And I'm not saying that I know this, but I'm telling you, I'm just using some skills here. I believe that corporations are going to Mexico and even other countries. They've probably done this in Ukraine too, even though they try to get them out of there because it's a war zone. They train them. They trained these Mexicans before they even got here. And before they got here, they had to sign on the dotted line that, look, we're paying for your training. We're paying so you can have this skill. But when you come to our land, you're only going to be on a temporary visa and you're only going to get paid peanuts. Because, 20 of y'all can live together. We got a complex for y'all to stay in. We've already set you up with housing. This is what they're doing. And so if he had been honest about that and didn't demonize people, man, he would get elected every single time. The other side, and I'm going to wrap it up, Kamala Harris's side. Because I agree, man, these brothers you got on here, man, I wish I was that sharp when I was their age, man. Hey, Brother Lim, I see why your first name is King, right? And the other brother, you on point too, right? Y'all on point, right? Because listen, Kamala Harris, am I pronouncing that right? I'm messing it up like Trump, right? The only reason I'm messing it up is because I haven't seen anything that she's done that's spectacular for black people, and neither did Barack Obama, right? It's like Lim said. They looked out for the LGBTQ plus Y76, whatever other letter we can add, because the bottom line is you got to start thinking about this kind of stuff. Why look out for them so tough? Why did President Obama look out for the LGBTQ plus population so tough? Man, what I've learned in all my time is the things that are really inside of you that you're really passionate about, those are the things that you work toward. So it made me wonder, what is up with Barack Obama? Now, it's not to knock him. That's not to knock him. But I'm saying he didn't touch anything that gave us anything substantial. Now, I'm a veteran. So there was one thing that benefited me that he did do for all veterans. It wasn't for just black people. He had something called VRAP, which was the Veterans Retraining Assistance Program. Even though I didn't need to be retrained, I was like, shit, I'm getting that $2,000 a month. And I'm just going to take classes so I can get it, right? But it benefited me. It benefited me because I did learn some extra skills and some things that I wanted to learn, right? So that's my take that, look, we need to focus on those issues that are common ground, and that's one. Stop letting immigrants come in here for all of those jobs that they do. We got people who can be trained to do those same jobs right now, right? You can, the one thing, and I know it sounds like I'm a Trump fan, even though I despise him, but the one thing that he also did that President Barack Obama could have done for our people, and so could Bill Clinton could have done this a long time ago, and the presidents after him. Man, Trump looked out for the drug addicted poor white folks. He gave them billions of dollars to treat those folks, man. What about all of the people who were strung out on crack? Where did they go? Man, President Obama could have dealt with that. They still were dealing with crack in his era, or they were dealing with some other drugs, because it shouldn't even matter what drug it is, because the bottom line is those folks are sick. Who helped black people? Man, that's what I'm on. I think I wrapped it up. I've given you the main argument, and the main argument is, man, focus on the issues that affect all people, and then look, I could go talk to white folks about this. My allegiance is to black people, but I care about white folks too, right? If I deal with common issues, if I deal with common ground, I guarantee, man, Billy Bob and Comiskey and Uncle Charlie, man, they be like, well, I like that Dr. Kuntz boy. He sure tells it like it is. God damn it. That's what they would say. I'm telling the truth. Am I right?
You right, Coach. Let me pass this over. Come on, Lem. Like, okay, we same thing. This Los, and we interrupt the debate, and I said, King Lemuel, what would you do to heal black people to bring us in harmony, unity? What would we do to change the state of Black America right now as it exists now? Go ahead, King.
So we have to know our history. We have to know where we come from. And I like how Dr. Kuhn said beyond American chattel slavery. But here's one of the things I think we don't hear enough of. We have to acknowledge that we are in what some have talked about as almost like a domestic violence relationship with America. And it's a love-hate relationship. We have to stop asking for a hug from the white man. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of our greatness that we have has been exploited by the record industries, that of course, obviously corporate America, but most importantly in sports and entertainment. We have dominated those genres. We know we can, but we're intellectually superior. Matter of fact, anybody heard of Miss Dr. Cress Welsing, who came up with the CREST study, who she basically said that the reason why white folks are so afraid of black folks is because it only takes one drop of black blood to annihilate their whole bloodline. And she came up with this study a long time ago. So it's a reason why there's a system in place that's here for us, but specifically for white folks. And I want to step on the side just a few seconds to say this. One of the reasons why, in terms of the human race, as we talk about it, wealth, economics, political power, and we're talking about power, period, white folks are doing exactly what they're supposed to do to take care of their own. And we then have to take a mantle to take care of ourselves. It's challenging for us, but it's because we're trying to heal, we're trying to grow, we're trying to progress on their chessboard. That's the hard part. You're trying to do it and you're in foreign country, even though we built this country, they make the rules. They set the rules, the laws, and and if they don't like the laws, they can change them. So we're trying to do it in a hostile environment, for lack of a better way to say it. But we have to first acknowledge who we are, where we are as it pertains to them. And a lot of the times when someone's trying to oppose you in a systemic way, it's the laws are in place, so I don't have to do anything to you in order to continue to hinder your progress. They talk about that. Whether it be you find yourself in a courtroom, whether you find yourself in a corporation office, wherever you find yourself, You can see where it's at. So when they talk about specifically, this is very important. When they talk about white privilege, it's a reason why people who are middle class white Americans, they can't see how they have been benefited in America. Some can, and they can't see the disparity. But there was a study done with children, and I can't think of her name, years ago, and I'm gonna land my plane here. They went around the room and asked little black children, little white children, would you rather trade places with this little black child? And all the white kids said, no, I would not. And they said, why? Because I see how sometimes they get treated. Little white children say, I see how sometimes my little black friend gets treated. I don't like it. Last thing I want to say, if you put all the wealth together of all the black billionaires in this country, you guys, I calculated about $40 billion. That's 14 different billionaires worldwide. It's probably more, but I counted 14 as of the Forbes list of 2023. Jeff Bezos could buy our black billionaires 5 times over. He has a net worth of $194 billion to the LeBron James, Oprah Winfrey's, the African kings and queens are at 40 billion. I gave them 5 billion for good measure. That's where we are in this country. Dr. Claude Anderson spoke about this. He said, right now, we are still last economically. After, with all of the wonderful Oprah Winfrey's, we are dead last economically. That means people are coming to our country and they're getting business loans that specifically they qualify for that we don't. Now, the healing begins. We acknowledge those things. We become empowered by the fact that we know we're great, but we also have to be humble enough to understand where we are. We can't be afraid to let our egos come together and come together and begin to talk about the things, the hurt, the pains from our women, men and women, black men and women. That's another one. We got to touch on that. And then from that point on, you can hopefully start the healing to begin. But I'm hopeful because I believe the reparations is going to get passed. I do. I really do. So anyway, I'm gonna land my plane there.
Well, this is what I'm gonna this is what I'm gonna say really quick, right? My fault, my fault. Dr. Coons, do you have any closing remarks? Do you want to? Can you wrap us up with the? We'll. I don't know if you want to tap on the schizophrenia stuff right now. Or do you want to wait? I know because that's probably for another. That's probably for another show.
That's
Right.
another program.
That's probably another show. But do you
Yeah.
want to close us out with some of the positive things for Black people in general before I end the show?
Well, the one thing I think I can wrap it up like this and wrap it up fairly nicely. I'll just where Lim left off, and because I agree with everything that he said, but the question always becomes how, right? It becomes how. How do you make that happen? And my thing is, let's connect it to reparations, right? That in order for you to receive these reparations, you remember how I talked about, no federal taxes, you're always climbing that ladder. You don't pay for higher education, right? It's similar to that as relates to getting this healing that we need and bringing people together. If all of that was attached to the fact that folks knew that, man, at the end of this session, that I got my check coming. At the end of completing this, I got another check for completing it, but I still don't pay for my education, right? Because if that's not happening, people aren't coming. Now, why am I saying that? Well, because I've been involved with the struggle on a local level. And so I know what it looks like. Now, take that on a national level and imagine the problems that you'll encounter, right? On a local level, I've seen success with a small group of people who reach out to, their network, and they make it happen, or they're able to elect people who will represent them. They're able even to stop recommendations for hires and say that can't happen. But then what happens is they get a victory or two, and then they go, man, we don't need to do anything else. Let Dr. Kuntz and about 3 or 4 others stand up, step up. We'll show up maybe the next time they try to do the same thing. We can't win that way. It has to be a consistent, ongoing struggle where folks are being trained to take the next person's spot constantly. If that doesn't happen, then we could be talking about reparations. We can talk about how to heal. We can talk about all of those things. But if they're not attached to something at the end of it that they say, oh yeah, I completed mine and I got a whole lot out of it, man, and I'm glad I finished because I got my check too. That's part of reparations. And then who are they going to put in charge? That becomes the question too, because there's a lot of us that are going to be like, why in the hell they got to be in charge? Why they got to be the ones that show us, this is the way to get it, and we're in charge of this program that you got to get through to get your part of your reparation. There's hundreds of years of that, and I'm seeing it firsthand. Somebody asked me the other day, and I'm gonna close on this. They said, Dr. Kuntz, man, do you ever sometimes just feel like you all alone? And I knew immediately what he was talking about, because I know that he probably was somewhere talking about how, I'm going to go to this meeting with Dr. Kuntz, and somebody else was like, man, let them niggas, I'm just talking the way they talk. Let them go and do that, man. Ain't nothing else going to happen. Yeah, they won a couple battles, but man, they're going to do what they do anyway. You know that. Can't win no battles like that. You can only win small battles. But man, if we only were consistent and we had enough folks that believed it, and we gained the synergy to create like this rolling ball, man, there will be nothing that could stop us from it. Because I see it. And this is why I never stop.
Let me pick up the baton from here, right? So, not to get spiritual on you, right? Real quick, I'm gonna end by saying this, right? And I know Rome can't speak because something wrong with his phone, but let me end by saying this. I know he'll appreciate this as well. In Genesis, in the Bible, whether you believe this or not, check this out. It was a story called the Tower of Babel, right? And these people were in perfect harmony. They spoke the same language. Everybody was alike, same people, right? And they decided they was going to build this tower. And so the tower was getting bigger and bigger. And they said, hey, I think we should build this tower to heaven. And so God came and had to disrupt all the stuff they was talking about, because at the end of the day, they were doing it with bad intentions. But the premise of this story was the fact that they were in perfect harmony and unity. It was nothing that they wasn't going to be able to do together. And so that's lead me. I always lead with my big mama isms. And the big mama isms is birds of a feather flock together. And if we can come back to the story of the Tower of Babel, and we all can come together. If somebody gave me the mic, and I'm gonna reiterate what Lim said, what Dr. Kuhn said, and Rome said, all into one. But if you gave me the mic, I'm gonna reiterate. Let's start with the education. It starts with our kids. And if we can train our kids not to be sexy red, and we can train them to think a little bit better and different and outside of the norm, and we can also go back to the real true discipline, what will happen is once they get to this level, we don't have to worry about them blowing and tricking money, because at the end of the day, the social economics of what we're seeing right now, and the social engineering, this would be transferring by the renewing of your mind. And it starts by thinking different. So what I'm saying to you is, I encourage everybody here to lead with love. Understand that you heal by loving God and loving your neighbor. If you do those two things, you will not offend, and nothing else we're talking about. I really appreciate King Lemuel, Rome, and my man Dr. Kuntz for showing up today. And I can't wait to have him on another call. Kuntz is starting his own podcast. Can you give them your IG or Facebook, or how they can find you, Dr. Kuntz?
I haven't started it yet, but if you ever just want to hit me on Facebook, you can find me on Facebook. Just my name, Richard Kuntz, and then I'll post there to give people information about exactly when it's starting and what the topics are. Right now I got a young man that wants to go on with me, and we call it Boomers and Zoomers. So he's from that Zoomers generation, Gen Z, and I'm from the Boomer, the older heads, right? But we're gonna deal with people in between. So we'll invite guests on who are in between, Boomers and Zoomers, and I'll give them my perspective. I want to talk about. I learn things all the time about what's going on with this younger generation from young men like him, and I can't believe what I'm hearing sometimes. So that's why I liked his idea. He said, "Man, Boomers and Zoomers." I said, "Let me run that by some people." My wife liked it. I said, "That's it." I was like, "That's it, man."
Hey, that's always it. So I want to shout out Norfolk State University, NSU. Thank you for bringing us together. Thank you, Brother Lim, for all that you do as well. I want to encourage y'all again just to grab another brother, man. Give him some encouragement. Let him know it's going to be okay. Whether we got reparations or not, we can't cry over no spoiled milk. So all I'm trying to explain to you is whether it come or not, we understand that God is still able and things are still moving forward. Thank y'all so much for this show. We'll see y'all next week.
All right. Thanks, Carlos. Thanks, Brother Lim. Brother